Welcome to Cranky Live, the show where bold minds meet real talk. This isn't your average sports or news show. It's where we break down sports, culture, and controversy with facts, fire, and fearless honesty. Here, truth cuts through the noise, and hype gets exposed. From football to track and field, from world issues to local debates, we ask the tough questions, speak without fear, and go deeper than the headlines. We don't follow the crowd, we set the trend. While others recycle the same tired takes, we bring fresh insight, unfiltered analysis, and bold perspectives. No echo chambers, no puppet talk, just real conversation for people who think for themselves. Listen with your brain, not just your ears. Think critically, question boldly, and speak freely. This is Cranky Live, where reason rules the mic and truth always win. Come on, let's get into it. Good night, Cranky Nation. Drew Russ, thanks for joining the chat. Press up, how are you doing? Good night, everyone. Good night. Hope everyone is doing well, enjoying the summer. We're gearing up for the new football season after the World Cup. And even in the meantime, the kids are playing. The under-20s are playing in CONCACAF. And the women are playing in Africa. So a lot of football still around, even though we're in the summer where people are supposed to be relaxing and taking their vacation and trying to recuperate from our long season. We have two items on the agenda tonight. One is we're going to talk some transfer. I've come up with this new show. I'm doing some video and then some live. I call it the Cranky Transfer Central. We talk about all things transfer. And then tonight also I'm going to do a recap of the U-20 game between Jamaica and Honduras, which I thought was a very interesting game. Good night, Peter. Very interesting game. And deserves some mention. Even though I don't follow the U-20 closely, I have watched a few games. I watched the Haiti-USA game, and I watched the Jamaica versus Honduras game. I have a number of friends who also seem to find all these Jamaica games when they come on. They don't watch football 24/7, but when Jamaica is on the tube, on TV, they do watch it. And there's a game on tonight, Antigua against Guatemala, which is a good game. The Antiguan goalie is a very good goalkeeper, actually. Pity he doesn't have the same support around him. But let's jump into the transfer market, because it's been a very interesting transfer window. It's warm. I call it warm. It's not hot. It's hot for some teams. Probably hot for Tottenham, hot for Chelsea, lukewarm for Liverpool, semi-warm for Arsenal, warm for Man U, but it's not hot. But we'll go through each of those. Some clubs have spent hundreds of millions. Some clubs haven't spent a lot, especially the ones who spent a lot last year. So it's going to be a very interesting transfer window. What makes it interesting also is that, if you think about Europe and football, there's only about one team in Germany have the resources to buy who they want. That's Bayern. There's 2.5 in Spain. And I say half because Real Madrid and Barcelona, even though Barcelona is supposed to be bankrupt, they can buy who they want most times. And Atletico Madrid also have some resources. And then in the UK, you probably have about 5 or 6 teams. I'll probably say 4 or 5 teams can buy who they want. The other teams will have to figure out how to finagle their finances. Good night, Michael Gordon. How you doing? And so I thought it would be good for me to start, doing transfers, but a little bit different way of sort of thinking about it, which is think about the clubs, what they have, what their needs are, and also consider any insight into the resources they have to allow them to achieve their objectives. So tonight we're going to do it alphabetically. Before I jump into the EPL, because it's mainly an EPL transfer show. And as I said, there are 2 main topics tonight, EPL, our transfers, and then we talk about the U-20. in the transfer market, Real Madrid, PSG. Oh, I mentioned Bayern. I forgot to mention PSG. And I think PSG being in France, I'm sure they have ways of maneuvering around the French rules, even though they still have to subscribe to and adhere to UEFA rules. But PSG have won the Champions League 2 years in a row. Obviously, have gotten a lot of resources from the Champions League, from always winning the local league, and they probably sponsor themselves, frankly. So they have a lot of resources, and they nowadays they're really in a great spot because France produce a lot of footballers, and they normally, like Germany used to be with Bayern, have first preference, and then everybody else can try to figure out a way to get access to that market. And France does produce a lot of footballers, probably more than any other country in Europe, actually, who actually play in other leagues. So if you think about what's happening today, there's about 2 or 3, I'm going to call them main transfers. One is the Yan Diomande, who initially it was about Liverpool, it was about Arsenal interested. Then he went to the World Cup, then PSG got involved, and now we hear Real Madrid are on the cusp of bringing him in. And Real Madrid already have Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. and Bellingham. And we're going to talk about Vinicius Jr. a little bit, given the association with Arsenal. So they're trying to re-engineer, reconfigure, regurgitate the what I call the Galacticos. Now that Jose Mourinho is the manager, and when he had the Bales, and he had the Ronaldos, and the Benzemas, and the Modrics, and Toni Kroos. That's an all-star team, which is what they're recreating here. Because they do get Diomande and also get Rodri, who look like he wants to go back to Spain. Then they'll be sitting really well. And Real Madrid hasn't won a trophy in 2 years, which is heresy for Real Madrid. Good night, Conrad. Good night, DC. How you doing? So it should be really interesting, actually, in terms of Diomande. Now, watch Diomande play. I actually thought his first couple of games he was really good, but I thought Pepe and Amad Diallo played better than him for Ivory Coast, actually, in the World Cup. He's a good player. What I like about his game is that he lets the game come to him. It means not forcing the game. And a lot of young players with a lot of skill and a lot of speed will just try to take you on one-on-one for the entire game without thinking through when does it make sense to make decisions. So he's a good decision maker, but it'd be interesting to see if he can live up to the price tag. You know, we can all recall when Dembele went to Barcelona from Dortmund. A lot of money didn't materialize. Now he won the Ballon d'Or, but he's a much better player now, but it didn't work out at Barcelona. So we'll see how that works for Diomande. And then we have PSG actually were pursuing Diomande. Everyone thought it was a done deal because they have deep pockets, and that didn't work out. And now they're thinking, and I thought part of their thought process I would think would be, we buy Diomande, we sell Barcola, so we replace, not necessarily like for like, or Diomande like to play on the right, Barcola plays on the left. But we should see how that works. Negative Cranky. What's that about, King Doc? How you doing? So let's jump into each of the, what I call top 8. I'm going to say top 7, and I sort of throw one team in there. Teams, and we sort of talk through them a little bit. Now let's start with Arsenal first. Let's start with Arsenal. So Arsenal has outlaid today about, and these are all in euros, by the way, not pounds. If you want to convert the pounds, take it about, multiply it by 0.85. And that will get to the pounds. So in terms of Arsenal, Nkapé and Zolis have come in. Well, Nkapé was here last year. It was on loan, so they just converted the loan to a permanent situation. And Kyriar, who had left the year before to go on loan in Portugal. And Trossard, who had a decent season, really great first half of the season, so-so second half. Both of those have left. So Arsenal has brought in about 38 million euros and shelled out 80. And Arsenal, as we all know, are the current champions. And when you become a champion, after having won for 22 years, and a lot of teams are going through changes, Liverpool going through changes, Pep leaving Man City, Man United going between managers on a regular basis like they're changing clothes. You should solidify your position and make sure you stamp your authority. I think Arsenal want to do that. And Arsenal were trying to get Morgan Rogers for under 100 million. But what Arsenal does really well is pontificate, is vacillate, is talk, and then someone coming up them. So they did it with Monga, the kid from Leicester. It was supposed to be 10 million pounds, and we hear it as it's a done deal. City come in and nip them. And same thing for Morgan Rogers. Now, I will say this. I am not upset that we lost out to Chelsea on Morgan Rogers. Not because he's not a good player, but he's not a need. He's sort of a nice to have. Morgan Rogers is a brilliant 10 attacking midfielder. He's not a wing. He's not a left wing. He's not a right. I watched him for England in the World Cup, and he played those 2 games. He played the game against France. He played more in the middle against France, but he played instead of Saka on the right against Argentina, and they should fire Tuchel for that because Saka said he was fit. And Morgan Rogers created the assist in that game, but he was lost for most of the game. So where's Arsenal going to play him? Arsenal already have Odegaard and Eze in the 10. We don't need another 10. We need a left-sided winger. We brought in Christos Solis, but we need another more well-known, well-situated player with the ability to cause havoc. Because our goal should be now not just winning Premier League, but trying to win the Champions League, which we have never won. All right? Drew Ross says better than Eze. Even if he's better than Eze, you're shelling out 100 million for a lack of a need. It's not a need. You pay 67 million for Eze. You don't need to spend another 100 million for Marcus Rogers, especially 117. Chelsea need him more than we do. In fact, Chelsea doesn't need him, actually. Because Chelsea has Palmer in that spot. I think Chelsea probably need more defenders and more of a traditional midfielder than they do. And we'll talk about Chelsea because now they're just hiring a bunch of old men. So for Arsenal, the goal should be to get a left-sided midfielder. Arsenal is also pursuing Guimaraes from Newcastle. Now, I have some concerns about the Guimaraes deal. When you are 29 years old, and it's going to sound really bad, and especially when you're Brazilian, your shelf life is short. Most Brazilian stars finish at 30. You just go check the history. You want to go way back to the real R9. You want to go to Rivaldo. You want to go to Kaká. You want to go to Ronaldinho. Most of them finish at 30. Neymar hit the big 3-0, done. I'm not saying Guimaraes can't play longer, but he may be a Casemiro who had one of 3 in 3 years at Man U. He had one good year, and that was the year before he just went to Inter. You watch Brazil midfield, Guimaraes and Casemiro look like the Titanic in there. Now, he's a brilliant footballer, don't get me wrong, but that ground that he needs to cover at that speed he needs and that breadth for over 75, 80 million for 29 years old, we're going to get 2-3 years out of him, good years. I think I don't think that's the approach to take. We don't print money. So I would say that, at 70 million, Casemiro costs 70, and Casemiro costs £300,000 a week. If he's coming for less than £200,000 a week, and he's about 70 given the inflation in the market, yes, consider it. Otherwise, don't go past 70. Find somebody else. We already have Lewis Kelly in there. We have Marino in there. We have Declan Rice in there. Now, I assume what Arteta is thinking is that he can play Rice in the 6 because Wemende has limited range, and maybe bring Guimaraes to partner Rice, and then have Eze or Odegaard in the 10. I assume that's what he's thinking. But we'll see. I don't know why you want to pursue Morgan Rogers. I can understand Guimaraes. I don't understand Morgan Rogers. I just don't. Given where our needs reside. Now, there are players out there like Rafael Leao, who was falling off quite a bit, that one could think about, who has the speed, who has the skill, may not work as hard defensively, and he's inconsistent. There's Bartola, and I hear PSG won 145 million pounds for him. Now, how does that work? So, Vinny Jr. would probably cost you between 150 and 200, whatever. Barcola doesn't start for France. Well, he starts sometime, not all the time. And he starts sometime at PSG. Most times he doesn't start because Kvaratskhelia play on the left, and then it would be Dembele in the middle and maybe Doué on the right, even though he switches with Doué quite a bit. So I don't understand why you think he's worth 145 million pounds. And he only has 2 years left on his contract. And he decided he doesn't want to sign another contract. So that's kind of weird from PSG standpoint. But for Arsenal, I think what Arsenal needs are a few players. They need a left-sided player, call it wing or call it midfield. They need a right back to cover Timber, because Ben White, time to me is up. He needs to go. They need a centre back on a temporary basis to cover for Saliba, who's out for a number of months. And we need a central midfielder to cover off for Zubimendi and cover off for Rice, Marino, and for MLS. My understanding is I saw a friend of mine in London, and they have some money to spend, but not as much as people think they do. Right? They have money to spend, but maybe not as much as people think they do. Now, they probably should have got the Manga deal done because that kid's a lot of ability. And if they want to buy Guimaraes, and they also talked about the kid from Atletico Madrid, center forward, plays for Argentina. He's also been a consideration. And we know that Berta like to have 6 or 7 deals ongoing and select 3 or 4 of them. So we'll see how that works out. But my expectation is that we'll buy that midfielder, whoever that is. I know we've talked about Scott and we've talked about Guimaraes. I would think that Guimaraes is more achievable, given that Newcastle is now investing in youth versus older players, and they can take this money and reinvest it. So let's see what happens. But that's for Arsenal. That's the Arsenal template and Arsenal situation, and hopefully they'll get some players over the line. Teams have started to their initial games, actually. I saw Tottenham play in Auckland the other day. And by the way, Tyrese Saul is with the Tottenham first team, because I saw him, got about 15 minutes. I think he came on the 70-something minute. Had a few touches, playing it simple. So a good thing for Jamaica if he can stay with the Tottenham first team, even though I think he should go out on loan again. Because given the restacking of Tottenham, he's not going to get much time in the middle with Maddison and Tonali and Fernandez and all the players that they have in the middle of the park. I don't think he's going to get much time. So good if he goes out on loan. But it will be interesting to see what happens for Arsenal as teams are trying to get players in so they can blend in with the squad. A number of players like Saka and Rice, all those players who played up to the semi-final, even the quarterfinal of the World Cup, we're going to be out for at least another couple of weeks. So you need to get the new players in, though, like a Guimaraes, who I hear is coming back this weekend to go to Newcastle for training, so they can be ready for the start of the season, which starts next month. King Duck says, why didn't Arsenal seriously pursue Victor Osimhen? Osimhen is a weird situation. You don't hear anybody talking about Osimhen, right? You hear people talk about other forwards, not Osimhen. I mean, think about it. People don't talk about Aston. And he's a brilliant player. I think part of the view is that he's high maintenance. He wants too much money. And whether that's true or not, you get that reputation. I don't know. It's not good for you. But I mean, he's in Turkey. When you leave Italy to go to Turkey, no Premier League team pursue you. You think about it. Man, you needed a forward. Arsenal needed a forward. Chelsea needed a forward. That means he has a bad reputation out in the marketplace. And if that's the case, it shouldn't be shocking that It should be shocking that he doesn't have a team. Now, Julian Alvarez, what I was referring to earlier, only had one goal in the World Cup. Didn't look, maybe it's a long season. Didn't look great in the World Cup. But Barcelona wants him. Real Madrid wants him. Arsenal wants him. Now, Berta was the main architect bringing him into Atletico Madrid previously. So I'm sure he has a relationship with him and his agent, but I think he wants to stay in Spain. And if you've ever been to Spain and been to England, you know why people want to stay in Spain, given the weather. I don't think Nigeria not going to the World Cup is the issue for him, because it was way before then. There are issues there. I mean, I think at one point they said he wanted £400,000 a week, and that was prohibitive for a lot of teams. I'm not sure what he's making now in Turkey, but no one is talking about Osimhen at all, actually. They talk about Alvarez a lot. There's not a lot of conversation about a lot of forwards. Just think about it. Alvarez is the only forward you hear a lot of conversation about. Chelsea needs a forward. Arsenal needs a forward, even though we have one and 2/3. I consider Havertz and Jesus to be 2/3. Well, no, I consider each of them to be, if I think about it, because Goalkeeper is not a full either. That's why Arteta looking for another forward. But a lot of teams need forward. Liverpool doesn't need a centre forward. They have Isak and Ekitike, who's injured. But Arsenal needs a forward. Chelsea needs a forward. Tottenham may need a forward, given Solanke hasn't necessarily hit the ground running, has been injury prone. So it's really interesting. The Determined said Osimhen is overrated. Goalkeeper is overrated too, but he got a big team. Who's better, Goalkeeper or Osimhen? Who do you think is better? You think Goalkeeper is better than Osimhen? I don't think so. If that's the case, how come Goalkeeper has a job and Osimhen doesn't? Now let's move on from Arsenal, and let's go to Aston Villa. We're going to the Aston Villa one. You know what? Let me make it bigger. Let's do Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa, I'm trying to set this up where it's not too small. That's too small. Let me make it bigger. Aston Villa has brought in 4 players. They spent Manzambi, who was going to go to Newcastle from the Bundesliga, attacking player. They hijacked Newcastle's deal and brought him in. They also brought in Yao Gomez, the Brazilian from Wolves. And they have lost quite a few players. So look at who they have lost. They have lost Morgan Rogers, who went to Chelsea. And Aston Villa has billionaire owners, but it doesn't matter how much your owner has, they can't spend the money. So they're having PSR challenges. But Morgan Rogers went for 117 million pounds, 138 euros. Daniel March, who was at Roma on loan, he's gone for 25 million euros. Yuri Tillman, who went there on a free from Leicester a few years ago, had a 35 million pound release clause that was triggered by Man U. So he's at Man U. And you see Berenchier there, then gone to Southampton. Not only did they lose these 4 players, but that's not done. If you know, Kamara had a bad injury last year, so he was out. And at the World Cup, Anana picked up an ACL injury, so he's out for a year. And then you have Leon Bailey, the winger, who may also, they're thinking about moving on to go to Hull. So their Bailey's situation is, I'm not going to spend no time on Bailey, but say this. When your team is lose so much players and just trying to get rid of you, it shows you how much they value or don't value you. Not a good situation. So Villa has brought in over 200 million pounds, and they have spent about 105 million. Not bad. So they over 100. They should have, after they satisfy their PSR obligations, I'm sure part of it is them trying to balance the books, they should have a little bit of money to spend and go out. They need to get a few players, right? They need to get they need a right winger, they need a left winger, they need a center forward because Watson getting old and Adams hasn't hit the ground running. They need another midfielder. They need a lot of players. They have quite a bit of needs. And I'm surprised Emery hasn't moved on because they're very restricted. He probably has carte blanche ability to do whatever he wants to do. He probably has the autonomy to make any decisions. He probably decides what trades they make, what transfers occur. So why give that up when you have that so much autonomy? By the way, people, please hit the like button. I appreciate you. So that's Aston Villa, who probably will also need to do something that Newcastle is doing, which is go a little bit younger, try to build up the profile of these players. I mean, they bought Rodgers for not a lot of money and sold him for quite a bit from Middlesbrough. And they may have to keep doing that. And I forgot Luca Dean. So they also need a left back. Luca Dean went to PSG. I have no idea how Luca Dean would have a 10 million euro release clause in his contract, but he was exercised by PSG. I'm sure Luca Dean agent probably told PSG this. Otherwise, how would they know? And so they also lost their left back. So it's an interesting time for Villa, actually. So now we go to Chelsea. Now, this is an interesting one, actually. And Chelsea spend big numbers. I know they can sell their hotel and sell their women's team this and sell that to get money, but their numbers are ridiculous. Now, look at Chelsea. They bought the one thing Chelsea does well, which Arsenal doesn't do well, actually. Chelsea does sell well. I think Arsenal best sale in its history is less than 50 mil. It may have been Ox-Chamberlain or Iwobi, probably somewhere around 40 mil. They have never sold a player over 50, 60, 70 mil. It's crazy. Think about all the other teams. I'm going to digress a little bit. Liverpool sell Coutinho and Suarez for over 100. Man U saw Ronaldo way back when, 75 plus. Spurs sell Bale. They sell Berbatov. They sell Modric for a lot of money. Chelsea sell Hazard. You go through all these teams, and we're the only team that has not sold someone for a big price. Kind of scratch your head and think, what we do really well, we buy high and we sell low. That's what Arsenal does well. I hate to digress to the Arsenal, but it's really bad, actually. And you can see the other players there. I had Lacroix there. It hasn't been totally announced yet, but he had his medical. So it's 61 euros for him, 138 for Rodgers, 57 for Palestra. So they're bringing her right back. Gusta probably going out the door. Quenda is 50 mil, the right winger. They bought a center forward for 25 mil. So they spent a lot of money. Now, they are good at selling. They buy young, and they buy them low most of the time, and they sell them at a decent price. We have Madueke. We know. We have a lot of Chelsea players. Andre Santos, they sold to Man U for 56 euros. Cucurella went to Real Madrid for 55. Garnacho, they sent out on loan, and they have probably a 40 million obligation, easy achieve with Villa. And then you have Tyreek George, who went to Everton. So they buy these players young. They give them long-term contract with the view of selling them on for profit. Clear their venture capital business. So you can see their deficit. Now, I'm sure they're still looking. Now, what Xavi Alonso's been doing is realizing that he has a young team and he needs some adults in the room. So he tried to get Xhaka, which didn't work out because Sunderland said, hell no. He's our coach. He's our manager. He's our captain. He's our orchestrator. We ain't leasing for nothing, no money. So all the Arsenal fans who hated Xhaka, and I know a few of them, Xhaka is a good player. As he showed in the World Cup, as he's been showing for Sunderland, as he showed at Leverkusen. Now, Chelsea do have some needs, even with all the spending over 300 million euros. And on net, you should always look at this net. So net is about 209. It's still a lot of money, right? As I say, multiply that by 0.85 to get the pounds. Now, what's their need? They need a defensive midfielder. They need a goalkeeper to challenge Sanchez. They need striker because they've given up on the lap. They only really have Yoy Pedro. They brought in Emmanuel Emega, but they probably need a more recognized striker. So what they're doing is they're negotiating with Brighton to bring in Danny Welbeck, who's about 35 years old. And they're going to also pursue Henderson, who's the captain of Liverpool and was at the World Cup. And he's not a free agent, to join them. So they're bringing in some adults, some very wise old heads who won't create any conflict, who are known to be leaders, to be part of that changing room, to change the dynamics of the changing room. And it's good that Xavi's thinking that way. And Xavi may have learned from his time at Real Madrid, where he had a lot of prima donna, and which cost him his job. So Chelsea's spending, and Chelsea, if you look at Chelsea's team, they have a lot of good players. You think about Neto, who's on the market. It seems like Neto is on the market. I'm not sure if Xavi Alonso going to get rid of him, but I know Liverpool is interested in him. Man City is interested in him, a few teams. But they have Neto, they have Esteval, they have Pedro. They just have a lot of players. Now Rogers, Caicedo, Lavia, Fernandez, Palmer. They have a lot of quality in that team, offensive quality. And now they also brought in LaCroix in the defense. What they probably need is, I said, a goalkeeper, a defensive midfielder, and probably another striker. They may also need a left back because they lost Cucurella. Hato is there, but he's still young. So I should have had that on the board. They should have another left back also. But they have a team that can challenge, actually, if they stay healthy, because Lavia has been injured for 2 seasons. If they stay healthy with Rogers' goal-scoring prowess and Palmer and Pedro, Esteval, Neto is good, but he doesn't know where the goal is. It'll be interesting to see how it all works out. And they bring in Danny Welbeck, who's played brilliantly for Brighton. Even though he's 35, he's found a rich vein of form. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out, actually. But so Chelsea, if you're a Chelsea fan, you should be optimistic about the upcoming season. Now let's go to Liverpool, which I find interesting, actually. So Liverpool has spent, 103 million euros, something in that range. Don't hold me to this exact number, people. I get a lot of these numbers from transfer market. So if the numbers vacillate a little bit, they shouldn't be materially vacillating. So Jeremy Jackett, who's a centre-half, is there to probably replace Konate. And Munoz is probably there to... I'm not sure he's one trying to replace. They have about 2 or 3 persons on the left. They really have no true persons on the right. So I'm not sure that's going to work out. Now, Liverpool spent what? On a gross basis, spent about 400 plus last year. They bought Frimpong, they bought Kirkes, they bought Ekitike, they bought Isak. And they bought Wirtz. Wirtz was over 100 million. Isak was over 100 million. Ekitike was in the 70s, 80s. Kirkes was about 50. Frimpong was cheaper. So you spent almost over 400 million. I think it was probably pounds last year. They haven't done a lot of business this year, or any business. Spent 100 million euros. So maybe they learned from last year. And they still need help. Ekitike is out for the year. Salah left. Konate left. All free. Robinson left. All free. He went to Tottenham. Van Dijk is much older and not moving as... He's moving like a senior citizen. And so has... there's another player. His name is escaping me now. Play for Argentina in the midfield. Who I think is also slowed down quite a bit. Right? McAllister. I think McAllister has slowed down quite a bit. So if you look at that team, they're challenged. Isak looked good in the World Cup for Sweden. So we'll see how he does. But that's the Liverpool setup. They need a right winger. They need a left back to compete with Kirkes. They need a centre back, even though they have Jackett. And they brought another kid from Italy who had an ACL last year. It's going to take a while for him to come back. And they need a central midfielder. So they have some work to do. Now, it's supposedly they're negotiating with Barcola, but he's a left-sided player. So I'm not sure if they're going to switch somebody to the right. Is Gakpo going to go to the right? Is Rio going to go to the right? Is Bartola, if they get him, going to go to the right? That's going to be an interesting one. Or do they just play Muniz over there? And though Muniz is supposed to be a left-sided player. Yeah, I would agree with that, Determined. They figure it out. It's like trying to manage your taxes, Determined. Some people say people evade tax. No, they avoid tax. They find ways to work around it. Ricardo said Isak was a horrible buy. No, I disagree with that. Isak was brilliant for Newcastle. He can't be a horrible buy. He didn't work out well, but he's not a horrible buy. He'll come good this year if he's not injured. He's very injury prone, by the way. He was injury prone in Spain. He has some injuries at Newcastle. So you got to know what you're buying. So that is the Liverpool. So Liverpool, there's not much to talk about Liverpool, which is interesting. They have a new coach in Areola, 2-year contract. They fired Slot, who won the year before. See the difference between Arsenal and Liverpool? Liverpool have an unrealistic expectation. Slot came in, won the league, didn't do well 1 year, still in the Champions League, they fired him. Arteta came to us, been here for 7 years, eventually it works out. Patience is a virtue. Because, by the way, if most fans had their way, Arteta would have been fired a while ago. But the Crankies, who I'm one of, because I'm a cranky, they did well in retaining him. They don't like to fire their coaches. You can see with their basketball and football team, they're not into the firing business. So it was a good deal for Arsenal to keep Arteta. Liverpool wasn't that patient with Slot. They brought Areola in. It was good at Bournemouth. We'll see how that works out. Now let's go to Manchester City. Now they have some new arrivals. They paid 135 million euro for Anderson. They bought Matthias de Torbet for 25 mil. They hijacked the Jerry Munger move from Leicester City for us, and they brought in a Pierce Charles, a goalkeeper from the Sheffield Wednesday. So they spent 175 million pounds, and they've got back in 15 for Akanji, which is very generous. And a couple of people have gone out, like John Stone, on free transfer. Now for Man City, there's still discussion ongoing about Savinho, the right winger, who doesn't score a lot, doesn't have a lot of goal contribution. And yet Tottenham has been pursuing him for 2 years. Tottenham is trying their best to get him. Man City want to sell him for 70-something mil. Please look at his stats and ask me how you're going to sell somebody for 70-something million, the Brazilian, when he has no stats to talk to. Now, I understand his game time has been restricted, but when he plays, he has no idea where the goal is. He's a good footballer, but he reminds me of Anthony, another Brazilian who used to play for Man U, but who's doing better in Spain. Don't understand how he's valued so much, and Tottenham want to spend 70 million for him. And I'll get to Tottenham and talk about him, but it's really interesting how much money Tottenham has been spending in these windows. Man City have 113 charges, which seem to be continuing to go on forever. You would think by now there'd be a resolution of this. Make a decision. Drop the charges or fine them, demote them, whatever it is. That's what happens when you have a lot of money and a lot of lawyers involved. You can stretch these things out forever. That's what they're doing. And after a while, if the news becomes stale, people lose interest. And so Man City has done a brilliant job of stringing this out. And the Premier League rules weren't as tight as they should be. And that makes it difficult. So Neil Gold said the transfer is not just about the money spent, but also about the wage. Oh, by the way, you know what? I missed something, actually. I'm going to go back after talking about Man City. Man City also have to hold on to Rodri, actually. Yeah, I know I had a big miss earlier about Arsenal. I'll go back to it. Man City has to hold on to Rodri. He's in the last year of his contract. He wants to go to Spain. He's back to his best. And the question is, what will happen in that situation? Will he go back to Spain? Will Man City say, you know what? We can't afford to lose him. We need to get Anderson blended in. So we'll take the risk. Or do they get their 50, 60 million from Real Madrid for him? He's about 30, but he was brilliant in the World Cup. I think if you want to learn how to play midfield, especially CDM, you have to watch Rodri play football. It's amazing. Maybe the under 20 team should watch him. We'll talk about them. But Man City, it's the same team. They're weeding out the players who are past their sell date, like Akanji, Stone. Last year was De Bruyne. They're weeding them out. And Ake left. Slowly but surely, they're weeding those players out and refreshing them. You know, Cherky's there. They make it with a Savino. They have Doku there. They have a lot of players who are new. And they have a new manager in Maresco called Pep Guardiola. As many of you know, decided to take some time off from football again. He did that at Barcelona. I'm sure he's addicted, so he'll be back in about a year or two. Maybe a year's time. But no Pep. Maresca is in. Different team. Should be interesting. Before I go on to the next one, which is Man U. I want to mention Vinicius Jr. and Arsenal, actually. I forgot to mention this. So as you know, there's a lot of talk of late. I dropped a video on this yesterday, actually, providing my perspective on all of this. It's a long video, about 40 minutes, because I think there's a lot I need to say. Talked about, is it feasible for Arsenal to bring Vinny in? Now, I know somebody sent me a video, actually, that Vinny was in Jamaica. Is that true? On vacation? Vinny is a brilliant offensive footballer. Vinny is a dud defensively. I think there's some stat that Vinny may have run the least in the Champions League defensively in terms of tracking back. And he probably in a class by himself. He probably competing with Mbappe because he doesn't run back either. But Vinny doesn't play defense. Arteta mandates that everyone plays defense. That's why Arsenal have so much injuries. People like Saka, Martinelli, Trossard. You have to work your tush off, as they say. You play for Arsenal defensively. Vinny does not play defense. So yes, going forward, you look great. And I'm hearing that Arteta wants him. When you think about Vinny, you think about dynamic, skillful, dribbling goals. You also think about high maintenance, challenging in the locker room, because I heard he was principally one of the key people, resulting in Xavi being, vamoose from Real Madrid. Difficult to work with in some respects. Doesn't play any defense. And last but not least, which is very important, the wages. Now, as part of the video that I did, as I talked about this, which is Vinny makes about 15 million euros annually. Which is and that's net, people. That's not gross. 15 million euros annually. So that's what, about 300,000 euros a week after taxes. If you gross that up in Spain, because in Spain, I think the highest tax rate for those who make about 300,000 euros is about 47%. So gross it up by 0.53 and you get what Vinny actually makes. Okay? It's a lot of money. So Vinny basically makes about close to 30 mil annually, because it's 50 million net. Now he's asking for 30 million net from Real Madrid, or then offering him 20 million net. So after taxes, people. So he'll go from 15 to 20, which means Real Madrid is paying on about 40 mil. If he wants 30, they're paying about 60 mil. He wants Mbappe type money. Arsenal, it says, will offer him £400,000 a week. So here's what most people don't seem to get with that. Arsenal's £400,000 a week is gross. Arsenal's highest paid player at this current point in time is Saka at £300,000 a week. Saka, 300 is gross. Is Vinny 400 gross? Because Vinny will be taking a big pay cut from Real Madrid if he's taking £400,000 a week gross. UK has a 45% tax rate if you make over £150,000. So divide that number by 0.55 to get what his growth number would be if he wants it gross versus net. If he wants it net versus gross. It's crazy. Crazy money. So think about it. He's going to cost about 150 to 200. His agent going to get about 20, 30 mil to add to that number. So call all in £200,000 just for the transfer. Then if you want wages at 15, at what? Say 30 mil a year times 5 years, so 150 mil. You're talking about 300 plus million pounds. What are we talking about? People understand the numbers. They don't make any sense. There are very few teams in the world that can pay you that kind of money. Real Madrid is one. And here's what people don't seem to get. So you pay Vinny £500,000 a week, right? Because that's what Haaland makes at Man City. But Haaland number is gross. So the taxes, Haaland is getting something close to £300,000 a week. So if you pay him that number, don't you think that anyone who comes in to negotiate, they're going to use his as the basis? What does Saka ask for next time? What does Odegaard ask for? What does Eze ask for? What do any player, even Max Daumann, what do they ask for? That's the basis. You can afford Vinny. You can afford me. I only want 150,000. It's not logical. It's not logical. Neil said Vinny's not going to Arsenal. He's using Arsenal as leverage to get a new contract with Real Madrid. You soon hear out. Yeah, I would agree. I think Saudi wanted to pay £200 million for him last year, the year before. He's not coming to Arsenal. First of all, most people who move to Spain don't move to UK because the weather is not. You move one way, you don't move back. You're not moving back to England unless you're not like a star player. You go one direction when you make those moves. See people like David Silva come to England and go to Spain someplace because Spain's weather is beautiful. England has horrible weather. He can make more in Saudi, but I think a lot of players, when they're his age, he's 26, they want to play against the best competition. Just think about yourself. If you play dominoes, if you play football, play cricket, and you can dominate, you don't want to play against somebody you're going to dominate all the time. You want to play where you have some competition, where you get the recognition, and where you're not out of sight, out of mind. So I do think he would want to stay in Europe, play in the Champions League, because he doesn't really need more money, does he? You want more money, you don't need more money. There's a difference. All right? You want more, you don't need more. He doesn't need more money, he just wants more money. He wants what he deems to be his market value. And I have no problem with people getting their market value, but not at Arsenal expense. And if I was a cranky, I'm not sanctioning that deal. Go try to get Bartola, talk PSG down from the 145 nonsense they're talking about, try to get him for about 90 or 80. You probably want about 150, 200,000 pounds a week. You're paying Jesus two something. You're paying Havertz 2 something. They're not doing anything to earn that. They're just decent players. They're not great players. So that making any sense. But I had to go back to that because I had forgotten about that component. So where are we? So now we're going to go to Manchester United. So Man U, I should bring up this, right? Man U has some key arrivals. They brought in Andre Santos from Chelsea. They brought in Yuri Tielemans. That was a great deal for Man U, by the way. I like Tielemans. He could have come to Arsenal when he left Leicester, but we didn't pursue him. So those are the 2 main ones they brought in. So they spent about £97 million, and they got good money for Rasmus Højlund, who couldn't make it at Man U, right? So they haven't spent a lot of money. It looks like Man U may have some financial challenges. They're still paying Rashford £325,000 a week. It's a lot of money. So it seems like they have some challenges. They brought Edison. So Casemiro left. Ugarte got injured. So they needed midfielders. And Andre Santos and Tielemans sort of satisfy that, but I don't see a CDM there. Andre Santos but he's young. They need a more older head, more mature person, sit in the middle of the park, feeding Tielemans, feeding Fernandes. They need to go get somebody. So they need a CDM. They need another center back. Maguire getting old. Martinez always injured. And they needed somebody else up front. They have Sesko and they have Cunha who plays a false 9. And I probably should put here, so they probably need a left back to compete with Luke Shaw, given that Malacia didn't work out. I don't see where they have competent left back to compete with Shaw, actually. So they probably need another left. I should have had that there instead of a need. They need a left back also. But it's not the Man U, right? Man U was always the big spender in the market. Since Ineos have taken over, they've been more prudent with their money, more thoughtful with their money. They're not buying the Casemiros for 70 million who passed their sell date. They're trying to be smart, give Carrick some support, but they're not buying those marquee players. So it's going to be interesting how it works out for them going forward. They're in the Champions League this year, so they have a lot of football to play. Last year, they only played one competition because they got knocked out of the FA Cup and League Cup pretty early. So it should be interesting where they end up, actually. So that's Man U. So I have a couple more teams left. Next one is Newcastle. Now, Newcastle had a horrendous last 2 years. Think about it. They have had PSR problem. Now, when people say Newcastle is the richest club in football, that's not a smart comment. They're not close to being the richest club in football. They may have the richest owner in football. There's a huge difference. There's the club that's rich, like Real Madrid. A club that's rich and poor, like Barcelona. Or a club that's in the middle of the pack in terms of wealth, like Newcastle. They're not rich. Bayern may be somewhat rich. Real Madrid is rich, right? Those are rich clubs. Arsenal has money. Tottenham has money, as you can see from their spending. Man U used to have money, but they have a huge debt that they got to service. Liverpool have money. Newcastle is not rich. If you're Newcastle and Villa, we have a lot of PSR problems because you have to pay out, say, you can't pay out more than 7% of your revenues towards wages, and you're struggling to meet that, like Villa does, like Newcastle does. You're not rich. Your owner is rich, but they can't self-promote, they can't sponsor their own team, they can't invest in their own team. You're far from being rich. So Newcastle last year sold Isak for over 100 mil, and they bought Walter Mata, and they bought Wissa. That fell flat. Wissa got injured, didn't play well. We saw him at the World Cup when he missed that sitter against England. I think he's lost some of his mojo. Nick Walter Mata looked like the Titanic. Decent player when he has the ball, but he has to go get the ball and he can't run. Oswala, who they have, the young kid, the young Danish kid, he's a good player, actually. So we'll see how that works out for them. If you think in the middle of the park, they lost Anthony Gordon on the left to Barcelona. So they got about 80 mil for that. Right? So if you look at their team, in terms of they brought in Musamana for 50. They brought in Bamba for 35. They brought in Steer for 23. They brought in Jacquin for 21. So they've brought in some players, but they're young players. So it's almost like they're refurbishing their team with youngsters. So they spent about 130 mil, and they've collected about 188. And if we get Guimaraes, there's another probably 70, 80 add to that number. But last year they lost Ramsey, right? A few years, 2 years ago, they lost Anderson, who now went to City for 116 million, and they had no sell-on clause, which is heresy. Now they lost Ramsey. Sorry, they bought Ramsey from Villa. So he's there. It's a good addition for them. But now they lost Tonali. They probably may lose Guimaraes. So they lost the heart of their midfield. Even though I think Tonali's a little bit ungrateful because they stood by him when he had a gambling problem and was out for a year. But they made a lot of money off him. They pulled in about 100 million from Tottenham. They lost Trippier. So they have a lot of needs. They need a central midfielder. They probably need two if Guimaraes goes. They need a right winger and probably a left winger. They need a striker in a centre back. When I say need a striker, meaning Walter Mata and Wissa hasn't worked out. Wissa may come good eventually, but he missed too many easy goals. He missed one against Arsenal. Thank you, Wissa. Could have cost us the league. So Newcastle is in a bind. They're fighting PSR. They're losing their best players. I'm sure people like Joel Linton will start asking the question, like, everybody's leaving. Why am I here? It's going to be interesting for Newcastle going forward and anyhow as to what they do. So that's Newcastle. Very, very tough for them. And then last and not least, and who may have the best transfer window to date, is Tottenham. Tottenham, when Levy was at Tottenham, they used to penny pinch, really spend over a certain amount. I think their highest was it Ndombele? They spent 60-something million pounds on. They never bought anybody for that number. And in one window, when they supposedly had no money, they have a big stadium, they have concerts, they generate revenues. They made over, didn't they make about 700 mil last year in terms of turnover? They made a lot, actually. And they have a very defined, well-defined wage structure. They tore all it up. They brought De Zerbi in. They were 17 twice in a row. And boy, did they decide to change things. They bought Tonali in for 108 million, overpriced, euros. Fernandez, who got relegated twice, got relegated with Southampton, got relegated with West Ham, 99 million euros. Crazy numbers. Jean-Paul Van Eyck from Brighton, another 60. They got Senese, free, transfer in, good player. And Andrew Robinson, who's past his sell date, but they took him in from Liverpool. And they're still looking at Savino. Now, they have some challenges. Kudos has been injured for a long, long time, but he's supposed to be back after their trip to New Zealand, wherever they are. Kulusevski has been out for over a year. Not sure what the situation with him. They have some players, but they may get rid of Romario. Richarlison's situation is not clear. They're in an interesting spot, actually. Interesting spot. You can see their net spend is on. They brought some money in. Vuskovic, who was in Germany on loan, went to Brighton for a big fee. And they brought a little bit of money from Lancashire. But those are just addition to the pot. So they spent almost 200 million euro, and they're still looking at Savinho and a few more players. They may get some money for Romario that Inter is looking at. Romero, I should say, not Romario. Romero, the centre half who gives a lot of problem, who's the captain, but they want to get rid of him. I don't think he's deserves his cup of tea. So he may be going. So they get some money. They probably get about 40 mil for him. So they may recoup some of their costs, but if they're going to go for Savinho, who's looking to cost about 70 million pounds, that's a lot of money. So Robinson has lost two-step. I'm not sure he's ever steal when he's lost two-step. So if I was to rate the transfer window, and you can't rate it until it's really done, but early in the process, Tottenham and Chelsea have won by a mile. There is no doubt about that. Now, what does that mean for them? Does it mean Tottenham now get into the top 5, top 6, top 4? They're in a better place. If they get Maddison back, Kulusevski back, Kudus back, and they have Tonali in the midfield with Fernandes, they get another centre half. Van der Ven is happy now that De Zerbi's in charge. Tell improve, Solanke improve, Richarlison improve. Well, it's hard for those people to improve. Their game is set. They'll be a good stand. They'll be harder. We won't have it as easy as we have had in the past few years to just run them off the pitch. Be a much different game. But they'll have a good team. Both they and Chelsea. So the Premier League's going to be tougher next year. Right? Liverpool hasn't made any waves yet. Man City going through some changes. Man U going to have Champions League. Some more games to play. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of works out and what that means for those teams. So that was my transfer update for the day. Long-winded, but a lot to talk about. Next time I talk about transfer update, I would only talk about the immediate transfers, not go back in the history of these teams and what they have bought and who they have bought. I'll more talk about what's on the horizon, like what's upcoming. So let's transition from what am I doing? Let's transition from transfers to some Jamaica football. Now, yesterday, even though I didn't decide not to go watch along for the game, I did watch the game between Jamaica and Honduras. I'm going to take a water break, people. Please hit the like button while I'm drinking my water break. I'd appreciate it. Please hit the like button. And watch the game. And I don't want you to tell me what your thoughts on the game. So instead of me just running my mouth. What were your thoughts about the game yesterday? Jamaica against Honduras. Jamaica won 2-1, by the way. Jamaica scored first by Nolan. Then Honduras scored in the 70th plus minute. And then Jamaica scored with what I would deem to be the last kick of the game. I have a corner. So what were your thoughts? You can call into the program. What are your thoughts on the under 20? I want to hear what the views are. Now, this under 20 is better than the last one who played in this competition 2 years ago. Because as we all know, which I mentioned almost every show, that team got 15-0 in 3 games. 3 from Costa Rica, 3 from Cuba, 9 from the US. This is a different team. Some of these players are matriculated from the under 17 to the under 20. People like Nolan are 16 years old. So they're a much better team, and it's been showing. But I want to know your thoughts on the team, actually, because I thought the game yesterday was interesting. And by the way, Honduras is known for having a good under-20 team for years. And they have a number of players who play overseas, whether they play in MLS next or they play in Spain, actually. In fact, one of the players they mentioned yesterday was in the Barcelona Academy. So players with some pedigree. So DC says, honestly, the first time I've ever watched a U-20 or U-anything match So what were your thoughts, DC? I want to get people's perspective as to what their thoughts were in the game. And I only have 30 more minutes in the show, people. I've decided to reduce my shows from 2-3 hours to like hour and a half max. I'm getting seasoned, so I have to watch my time on the air. So what were your thoughts on? Tell me your thoughts on yesterday's game. Come on, don't be shy. Let me know your thoughts on yesterday's game. You think Jamaica played well? Who were you impressed with? Was Honduras game what you expected? How do you think Jamaica will do as they progress in the tournament? Because the top 4 teams get to go to the Olympics. And obviously you play through this, you're going to get to the Under-20 World Cup, given where you finish. So what are your thoughts, people, on the team yesterday, how they played? Did they exceed your expectation? They did win. I want to reserve my perspective until I hear some of you guys. Maybe I'll leverage off what you're saying. And the phone line is open, actually. And put it up. If you don't want to call in. Phone line is open, people. At least I think it's open. Let me check to make sure it's open. Let me check to make sure the phone line is open. So if you want to call into the show, people, let me know. Yep, the phone line is open. DC says, I was hoping Jamaica would seize the turnovers. Well, Jamaican football and turnovers are family. So that can't happen. Oh, no, Honduras had more possession. Yeah. I mean, we'll get into that. I'm reluctant to put my perspective. KB said it was interesting to the lineup as the coach didn't feel his strongest team. You think he didn't feel his strongest team? Is that a strategy, or do you think that team better fit what he's trying to accomplish? Because I heard people say that he didn't feel the strongest team. And what coach wouldn't feel the strongest team? Or is the strongest team based on what the public thinks and he thinks differently? I'm curious. It was a physical team, that's for sure. And you don't mean strong in terms of physicality. You mean strong in terms of talent and capability, I assume. So they were much stronger than the Hondurans. The Hondurans are very, very technical and very, very skillful and do keep the ball well, actually. So no comments on the other 20 people. Might as well just close the show down, people. If you have no comments on the other 20. Might as well close on the show. We have waste time then. Can we know someone who watch the game? A lot of you watch the game, actually. I assume we're in the chat. Nobody have any comments on the other 20? You don't want to put in the chat or on the phone line? Nobody. Can we close on the show, We can't stay around my mouth all out evening. We need participants. We need participation, people. Come on. Hit the like button, people. Hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts were on the under 20. KB says, I think he's going to heavily rotate the team. I don't think Jamaica and Canada are going to be watching each other. Interesting. Nitro said did not watch, but good result. Probably a good thing you didn't watch Nitro, but a good result. I would agree with that. DC said, I saw moments of panic in the second half, but yes, I guess a win is a win. Yeah. I am much more fastidious when it comes to this. I am not one of those people who say a win is a win and we just take it and move on. I like to dissect things and, because sometimes you win, but you realize it's not sustainable. I'm going to get to my thoughts, KP. I'm going to do your guys' thoughts first. I hear Ricardo. So you're saying some people like me are pessimists and it can't be satisfied. Hard to please. Okay. I hear that. When I watch these games, I'm actually not looking at the under 20 per se. My perspective and my perception and perspective and views a little bit different when I watch these games. I'm gonna get into that. DC said a lot of speed, but I didn't see a whole lot of control on the ball. Good observation. Say rest young Gardner, Rakan, and Lils. Is it because you think they're Gardner like come from far, from all the way from Stockport, or is it because he believes the players here are just better? By the way, this was a starting team yesterday. Jamaica starting team. I think that was a starting team. And support. That's what I'm not sure they played at a 5-3-2. It was interesting trying to figure out what formation they were playing. But that was the starting team. Now I'll say, let me take more comments and then I'll jump in. Michael Gardner with the optimum observation. Cranky Jamaica had no midfield to hold the ball. Chi Gardner, 5 minutes was a travesty and need to start the next game. Dermot says, Cranky, our Brunman 16-year-old brother done in the 220 team. I know. So I think there were 5 substitutes yesterday, actually. 5 players came on. Actually, yesterday. There were 5 substitutes. So let me just, Flo, it's anything to watch it. Let me just mention something about the game. So I'll say this, actually. When the under-20 played in the Caribbean, they dominated in almost every facet of the game. Whether it's possession, physicality, scoring, decision-making, dominated. But I keep telling people that the Caribbean no longer is the barometer for assessing the team. DW says, sometimes you ought to kill me. It's the first game when we are saying the coach rotated and rested player. But DW, that's the people's perception. You may think it different. I don't know if he did or not. I would think you want to play your best 11 in your first game because you need to win that game. Nitro said, Brown man, brother, we play for England. KB said, no, didn't have to win the game. I think they're going to try and go all out to put goals against Panama and then try to match Canada. Why does everybody think that Panama can't play football? Is Panama any different from Jamaica? Panama were down 2-0 to Canada. Was very technical. They got a red card, late first half, and they lost 3-0. Yeah, we are Caribbean bullies. We are. Gary says, good results, awful display. Emblematic of Jamaica football. Poor passing, poor decision-making, the typical reframe. So the thing that jumped out at me yesterday, which I find really interesting in, the narrative that I've heard espoused by coaches in Jamaica, that we should play to what they call our strengths. And I heard Rudolph Speed say this. I heard Toxic Boss say this. And I've heard Cody say this somewhat too, which is we're quick, we're fast, we're strong. Inherent in that conversation is you play counter-attacking football, you play transition football. You get the ball up the field as quickly as possible, maybe 1 or 2 passes, right? Really interesting. I'm going to take comments as I go through my comments. KB says, no, I watch every U-17, every 20. I know the players. That's why I can say what I'm saying with confidence. Okay. Determines the keys to missing placement. Yeah, the right back from Holland wasn't there, was he? Thought that was interesting. Michael Goran said, the coach blundered by not starting supposed the best team. I think the coach thought who thinks is the best team. But let me just say this. In terms of playing, what I found interesting in the game yesterday is Honduras walked the ball up the field a lot of times. When Honduras started out, they were left side dominant in terms of how they were attacking. Even though I did think Burgess played decent, but and I'll talk about individual plays, he's too aggressive. That's part of his problem. I think he's a decent player. They were left side dominant in their attack and start spreading the attack out. When they get the ball, they walk the ball up the field. They play between the center halves, then try to go through the middle. They go wide. There's a pattern of play. They have a number of players who play, as I say, in the US, or they play in Spain. And you can see the coaching. And you can see the midfield. And you hear me preach this a lot of times. I've said this numerous times. If you can't coach midfielders, to me, you can't coach. If you're a coach with a kick and run football, sorry. Spain show you how football should be played in the World Cup. Even against a great France team. A very good France team. Now, the kids really play hard, actually. They don't lack control. They control the ball pretty well. Right? They're physical. They're quick. Their control is good. But the decision making, wow. Now, a lot of those kids are not based in, a number of those kids are not based in Jamaica, you know. There are quite a few, like you have a kid from Mount Pleasant, Arnett Gardens, but a number of those kids are playing in like MLS Next, covering Canada. So they're not all based in Jamaica, actually. Right? 1 and 2 from the Americas and the Caribbean. So it's a very spread out team. We didn't get a lot of players from England. I think we have decided to go local. That's fine. That's a JFF decision. The kids play hard. They play with purpose. They're very committed. They work their socks off, even though they're getting tired in the second half. So they do have, I'm going to call halfway decent, some of them technical ability. But the disparity in the technical ability of the players between us and Honduras was very apparent. The 2 goals we scored were not from build-up plays. Had a lucky one where Nolan, who's a very good player, not 16, playing on 20, he's playing way above his age group, frankly, where he should be. And he's a big kid too. Good player. Play on the 17, play on the 20. Scored a good goal, took the goal really well. And the second goal came off a corner, scrambling in the box, we scored. No build-up play. The Honduras goal, they walked the ball into the goal. And that's partly Burgess' fault because when the last pass was made, they're trying to play offside, and Burgess putting his hand up for offside. He was the one that kept the play onside, right? So he's got to be a little more thoughtful the way he plays, actually. He's overly aggressive, and then he's not following his back 3 or back 4 when they're trying to play out. But Honduras walked the ball into the goal. And Honduras had, about 20 shots? There was a big disparity in the technical ability between the 2 teams. We're physically stronger than them. Apart from a few players, their center forward who missed a head in the first half, and the left wing and a few more. The Jamaica team, just structure-wise, is just bigger, stronger, faster, more physical. And it showed. And that will get them through a number of games until they run to a team that have the same physical capability and is more technical. Then it becomes a different story. But some parts in the game were a hard watch. Because here's what's funny about Jamaica. So the kids were trying to play football, you know. It's not that they weren't trying to play. You would see a combination between Nolan sometimes, and Scott, maybe Howell a little bit, and Young. They're trying to play sometimes, but it's almost not inherent or innate to their game. But it should become after a while. I thought Howell had a difficult first half. Couple touches, good touches here and there, but the decision making in the middle of the park, we struggle. And what you're finding more in football is the games are won in the middle of the park. That's why midfielders are so expensive nowadays. Football games are being won in the middle of the park. Jamaica don't have quality midfielders at any level, and that's why they struggle. The defense is pretty good, actually. Physical. If you watch the game, we play the ball really well amongst the center half and left and right back. And then the left back can't find any pass, so he goes long. Right back can't find a pass, so he goes long. Center half can't find a pass, so they go long. And the problem with going long sometimes is Nolan can get behind his defense. Nolan can get behind the defense. But there's no precision on the passing. There's no deftness on the passing. So he goes long and go to the goalkeeper, and you're just like frustrated, thinking, give Nolan a chance to go get the ball. Give Bell a chance, give the forwards a chance to go get the ball. Leighton, who when I saw him play first, I wasn't totally convinced, but the more I watch him play, the more I'm more convinced. He worked really hard defensively, by the way. Wasn't getting a ton of service, but did well enough, right? He works really hard. He plays hard. But what we're not doing is, you know what? If you're gonna go long, so you gotta go long. So we're going long a lot. At least give yourself an opportunity to go get the ball. We kick the ball long and that's it. If I play a defense again, you know how hard that is? I keep telling people this, people. People don't seem to understand this. People, if you're in the chat, there's 111 of you, only 66 likes, please hit the like button. Let others watch the program. When you're playing football, people, in today's football, and a lot of you play football who are in the chat, you know when you have the ball, you don't feel tired enough. When you have the ball, you don't feel tired at all. No matter how much you run, when you have the ball, you don't feel tired. As soon as you lose the ball, the leg them feel heavy. So if the other team is keeping the ball and they're happy and they're moving the ball a lot, they're playing their 1-2s, and you have to be chasing them all game because every time you get the ball, you just kick it back to them. It's not a good outlook. It's not a good look. There's an inability for us to get the ball, right? We get the ball. We then have patterns and triangles up the field. It's limited. We have one triangle and it broke down and that's it. It's done. The support, and here's the thing that is most important that people are not talking about. Our decision making under pressure is atrocious. When we have any pressure, we pass the ball out of bounds with a nice 5-yard pass, even limited pressure sometimes, or a nice 10-yard pass to be made. Or we're not looking quick enough. I remember late in the second half, we had a ball in the middle of the park, just switch to the wing, he's wide open. Or the player who was it Scott who got through on goal? Some people say he overran the ball. No, he didn't. He didn't know what he needs to do when he got in front of the goal. He was totally bamboozled about what decision should I make. He got away with the keeper. He was one-on-one, and he just passed the ball to the keeper. He didn't try to lob it to the far post. He didn't try to beat the keeper. He didn't try to do anything. Almost like he just lost his thought process. In those situations, you need to create scenario analysis to allow them to put into an environment where it's almost like it's a real game, where you're giving them those one-on-one situations with pressure by the defense to make decisions, and keep repeating until it becomes second nature. Now, in football, people are going to miss chances, right? Situation changes, but you have to continue to guide and teach and cajole to get these kids to play at a certain level. I think some of the kids have technical ability. I didn't see anybody miscontrolling the ball a lot of times. What I saw was when they had the ball in certain situations, the decision-making wasn't good. The angles weren't there. The knowing what I'm going to do with the ball before I get it wasn't there. Look at how Spain play football. People I know, people like Roger play. They got 2 and 3 passes before they get the ball. They've got 2 and 3 passes before they get the ball. The speed of thought and the quality of thought is exceptional. And you have to create scenarios to teach those situations so the kids can execute. I don't think that's been now I know some of these kids are playing MLS next and they're supposed to have good coaches, but it's not there. And Honduras was just, they must go home thinking, how the hell did we not win that game? Head wide, left foot wide, right foot wide. They were bombarding the goal with shots. And we are much more physical and quicker than they are. And yet we struggled. I am glad the kids won. I was ecstatic the kids won. But I walked away feeling uncomfortable, and I hate that. I walked away feeling uncomfortable. And I know, look, Honduras has won this competition in the past before. Honduras is a good team. They have a lot of technical players. It's Spanish football. They learn how to kick the ball from they come out of the crib. But we have to develop that discipline also, and that ability also. And be comfortable under pressure, and be comfortable making decisions, and be comfortable understanding how to make the right decision when we have 3 or 4 options. Or how to create 3 or 4 options so we have outlet when the opportunity is not there to go where we want to go. That needs to be taught over and over and over again. demonstrated, thought, actioned. And I was very frustrated watching the game because I said, some of these kids have ability. It's just the decision making is poor. I see some of the kids take the ball and they dribble down into a rabbit hole and then they go out of bounds, they lose. And I'm like, didn't you anticipate before you start dribbling that you couldn't go down there, so just pass to somebody else and move? Why are you making that dribble when there was nowhere to go with that dribble except turn the ball over? My hope is that Rudolph is, because as a national coach, it's very hard, even though I think you have more time with the junior team than you do with senior team. But I hope he's imparting to them I hope they watch the tape of this game and realize they got lucky yesterday. Lucky. Look, I think we've heard a lot from the JFF about their coaches are now being taught. They haven't given us a timeline about when we'll see the results of such teaching, right? I would have hoped the JFF would have come on and say, you know what? Given the curriculum we put in place, given where our teachers should be, 4 years from now, we should be XYZ. I keep telling people that they should go to Spain and go learn. It's like you went to the U in Jamaica, but people go to Oxford, people go to Cambridge. There's a reason. They go to Harvard and Yale. There's a reason. You have a lot of intellectual capital there. You want to go someplace where there's so many people with so much knowledge that you can leverage from. And can be taught by those people you can come back and teach. We don't do that. We go to Trinidad to get taught, and then Trinidad's struggling just like we are. Now, it's still in its infancy in terms of the curriculum and teaching and the requirements. So it's going to be interesting. Good night. Good night.
Thank you, big up yourself.
Bless up. Who am I talking to?
That's the big question that I have people. Like, really?
I haven't heard your voice in a while, so I have to ask. You got to tell the people who am I talking to?
Ruben Amarim.
Oh, Ruben Amarim? I thought you fired him. I thought you let him go.
No, but they're AC man right now, man. You know? Try to mix something with nothing.
It's amazing that people can get fired and get new job right away and get paid off. It's crazy.
I think it's just like when Vincent Company got Burnley relegated, and you know,
and get big time job and can win league.
Simon Jordan said this is failing upwards.
Yeah. Let me take a comment first. Take a couple of comments first, then you can talk. Cranky, you realize that it's Jesse Marsh who's coaching the U20 one day if speed come. Wow, really? Jesse Marsh coaching U20? I didn't know that. Michael Gore says, so Cranky, what is it?
U20?
Huh?
Which U20? Canada?
That's what they're saying. He's coaching Canada U20. I didn't know that. Cranky, can we agree that team looks better? I said that earlier. The team looks better than the last team. The last team was awful. It looks much better. They spend time. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Steve McLaren. Steve McLaren, go ahead.
You kind of just want to touch on the transfer market. Like, the transfer market nowadays is absolutely outrageous. You know, like, I don't really know how people price players. Like, you know, because I know that in pricing players, the price potential, I guess, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And, you know, other aspects. But, you know, you look at certain players get sold for like, it's almost like everybody knows is worth like upwards of 100 million, you know? You can play maybe less than 30 games of maybe more than 10 standout performances as a early teenager or early in your 20s, and a club just look at you and say, you know what, 80 million euros or 90 million euros or 90 million British pounds. And I think the market controls itself, frankly, because you see people don't pay these outrageous prices, then a lot of these selling clubs won't make they won't price these players at these outrageous price tags. You know what I'm saying?
But I think what's happening is that the other leagues know the UK have money, right? EPL has money. British players have a tax associated with them for whatever reason. And so look at Diamande, for example, who was in the US 2 years ago playing whatever football, end up at Leipzig, and now he's been there for years. It's 100 million. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But if you didn't have the money, you would buy. Here's the thing: if you didn't have the money, you wouldn't be able to buy the player, right?
I don't think, for the most part, a lot of these players that would have been signed for these outrageous prices in the last maybe decade or so, right, I don't think they've been worth it. And I mean, to be fair to them, they don't set the price tag in any sense. Because in truth and in fact, these players are talented, you know. You can't really take that away from them. They are talented. But maybe the pressure that they face comes with the price tag as well, you know. And people expect players to perform early. You know, one player I use as an example in terms of sometimes the expectation as us as fans isn't really the expectation that scouts have on players, you know, because scouts might think, you know what, this player needs time to develop. Whereas when a player is purchased for a big club or even a small club, people just have a direct expectation to, all right, they must perform at this current moment in time, which, you know, sometimes you have to give players time. Nicholas Jackson, for example, can keep. I've been a big advocate for Jackson, right? When he was purchased, Nicholas Jackson just had one season at Villarreal and him come at Chelsea and everybody act like this man was like an early Nolan or something, in which he wasn't, you know?
Yeah. By the way, people,
And
we'll come back to that 20. We'll talk this people will come back to them 20. Go ahead.
yeah, I think his reputation would have been dealt a bad blow because overall he's a very good player. It's just that him can't finish, you know? I'll see you, Joe.
Yeah, no, he's a good player. And I forgot to mention him. Villa, I think somebody was interested in him. Was it Villa? But because Villa sold Rodgers to Chelsea, he can't go the other way. Some rule that precludes that. So
Yeah.
it should be interesting. Yeah.
But
What's your thoughts on the under 20?
yeah,
I didn't watch them.
no, you know, some not really watching the football. And if you get watched the World Cup that much, cranky, so
Okay.
not really keep up with the football. But I'm asking before I leave still. Arsenal transfer windows. I've seen that you guys have walked away from a couple of deals.
We haven't walked away from any deal.
Well, you're not.
We've been pushed away. Pushed.
Well, you're not willing to enter a bidding war. But everything about the Vinicius links,
I think it's ludicrous. I think it's nonsense.
I think so.
Yes.
I mean, the Arsenal board feel pretty confident, you know. So
So people, did I explain the numbers to people? The man makes 15 million euros a year. He wants 30. Real offer 20. Let's say he takes 20 million euros. Multiply 20 by 0.85. That works out to be about 70 million, right? Euros a year. Net. Not gross, net. So given tax rate in Europe, most jurisdictions almost 50% tax. You got to multiply it by 2. Arsenal can't afford that.
yeah.
That makes no sense. It's nonsense. But all these analysts and all these people pontificating, and I'm like, unless Vinny decided to take a pay cut, which you know Vinny's not doing, it's not happening. Now,
Yeah.
and
I mean-
if he comes, then you pay 150 plus his agent fee about 30. That's 180. He gets a 5-year contract.
His agent fee alone is 30 million.
Well, normally those big transfers, the big cut, you know, it's not no 5 and 10 million.
Well,
But the bigger the
yeah.
fee, the bigger the transfer price, the bigger the agent fee. And the agent is paid by the club, unlike in the US, where the agent is paid by the player, and player pay between 3 and 5% to them agent. In Europe, the agent is paid by the club.
but you don't feel now we're missing out on Morgan Rogers, though.
No, I think it was a bad deal in the first place.
Listen,
Why you gonna buy
I-
Morgan Rogers, who was a seed? He was a 10, and only can play the 10. He may play left side for Villa, but he's not a true left winger. Makes no sense. It's madness.
When you come on to big money signings with the English player, them I don't trust it because there's just something about English players where like you just I can't have the trust in them so them are gonna turn out to be something good. You know, there's only a few over the years which weren't big money signings in which they became something special, like the Hurricane them and the Raheem Sterling. But if you look at all the English players where get signed for big money over the years, right? They really haven't lived up to expectation for the most part, to be honest.
Well, if you think about
I think you're very-
so which one?
I think you're
So Harry Kane has lived up to expectation of Bayern. He wasn't overly pricey. He was about 70 something.
Who that?
I said Harry Kane has lived up to expectation for Bayern. He went there when he's pretty
Oh,
old,
that's different. That's Hurricane.
right? Rice for Arsenal, I think I lived up to expectation.
Well, he moved up to expectation, right?
Yeah. Who else is
But
big
it's-
money move in England?
Sancho, them and you see the one
Well,
that really
yeah.
earn them name or earn the price tag. They never seem to work out, and a lot of these English players are very limited. I'm sorry, you know they're very limited.
They do look limited when they played in the World Cup. They were limited against Argentina, who was awful
But even
against
in the Premier
Spain.
League, them look limited too.
Here's the problem in England actually. The decision making and the technical ability that you see in Spain is it's different. It's different. It's just different. You hear me? I've been singing this song for the longest, right? is just different.
Well, you've been singing the Spain song for the longest, and that's where you have to get respect, you know. De La Fuente would have won the was it under 20 or something like so, or Olympics, something like so. I think if they win the a youth tournament with them, a lot of these same players in the senior team now, then they win the Euros and then they come and win the World Cup. So he has been in the system.
But he won the Euros also. Forget he won the Euros.
Yeah, you know. So a lot of these players and this coach, they would have been in the pipeline for the last maybe 5-6 years. So it's just a straight.
Wait, no, he won the Euros and the World Cup without a centre forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
without a centre forward. And also, they lost Williams because Williams has been injured, not playing well. So they didn't have that left winger they had the Euros.
Game as well, you know,
he showed you has ability. Yeah, Arsenal's been looking at him for a while, but we haven't pulled the trigger on him.
But let's episode still.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the call.
Yeah.
All right, people. That was Pressa. Pressa says that we watch a lot of football. But yeah, back to the U-20 people. I am glad they won, and I hope they go far. Because sometimes when you call out what you see, people think you're just being critical. I am very encouraged by the enthusiasm. Here's what I don't want to do, because here's the problem I run into. I sound like McLaren when we was talking about the JPL players. They're fast, they're quick. I'm watching Mexico play now against Costa Rica. The ball movement is ridiculous. The passing, the movement and the passing, the interchanging. The game is on, people, on FS1, and you watch them and their movement, and you watch them how they play, and you watch the defense just moving around, not really even pressuring them. They don't feel pressure. You have to get to the point where you don't feel pressure. You don't feel pressure. And while with Jamaica, as we have a little bit of pressure, we kick the ball long and it goes out of bounds. Yesterday, go watch that game again yesterday, if you can get a replay. 70% of the ball we get, the left back, right back, principally, especially the left back, he's going over the top, and then he's not giving his winger or his center forward a chance to get the ball. And you know what the funny thing about the game was? When Honduras was pushing up, they were spacing behind them. When they were pushing up, it's spacing behind them. And we weren't taking advantage of that space. Here's another thing I realized. The teams that hold the ball really well, because they can rest on offense, they press quite a bit. You look nowadays on teams that really dominate possession. And this started with Man City, actually. How Man City used to play, how Spain play. Because they have so much possession, they can rest on offense. They press a lot on defense. Because you can afford to do so, you can win the ball back. And then you can rest. It sounds counterintuitive, but that's what happens. So my hope is that with our athleticism and our physicality, if we make better decisions and we get more technical, my hope is that we'll do better. I think Jamaica wanted to win yesterday. They played like they wanted to win. They put in a lot of effort. They worked really hard. They supported each other. And they lucked out by getting the win. But if you're Honduras, you feel hard done. And some of those Honduras kids were so small, especially I think it was the number 10 when they say play in Spain. Such a small kid, but so technical. Passing was good. Movement was good. They just couldn't finish. Or I would give the defense some credit, which is especially the center halves who made himself present when Honduras attacked. In fact, Honduras had a ball yesterday which crossed the box where two of their players missed a tapping, which I'm not sure how they did so. And that was when the game was tied at 1. Let me take a little more comments. Michael, so why Liam Bailey can't garner more than 12 million and negotiating to get at least 15? You better hold him about a job. Gary said the market determines their value. I don't know if the market determines their value, what determines the value, but values are in excess of what they should be. Gareth says, Arsenal wage structure is hard for fit for Vinny. Yep, I would agree with that. He says, cranky, all the coaches in Jamaica is a carbon copy of this something defense. Yeah, that needs to change. That's the problem for Jamaica. This concept of counter attack and just playing transition football. It should be part of your game. It shouldn't be your game. Crumlin said, U-20 said look good the other night. We need to follow the team. Crumbling, expand upon that comment. So Honduras left back is from Barcelona. Yeah, he played like it. I thought Leighton did okay though against him. I think Leighton needed more service. AQ Armstrong says all those AQ. How you doing, AQ? Long time, AQ. I don't think I've seen you since football has been over. AQ says all those Mexicans are playing the top flight of Mexico. JPL don't compare, so we can't do like them. Yeah, but we I always believe when you have the physical attributes, I was watching some track and field today for the women's final and the 200. All I see was all 8 contestants were one persuasion. In fact, for most of the races, where there were sprints, until you get to distant races, black people don't like run around, don't miss a thing here, especially the women them. Peer shot, distance, certain people have certain persuasion. So, yeah. Zontana says, I didn't watch the match. I listened to Max IMAX and he said he only Garner played well. Is that true? No, I think no. There were some players. I think the 2 center halves played well. I thought Headley and Brown were decent. I think Burgess had a mixed game. Played well in spurts, but was overly aggressive. I didn't think Howell played well. I think Leighton did okay. I think Nolan played well. I think Scott struggled. He's got to think about whether he want to keep playing Scott, actually. Corey says, we need infrastructure cranky. Our fees can't pass on. We ain't going to get no... We better learn to play on them field like the Africans do because we ain't getting no infrastructure. Can you live stream the next... No, you can't. It's kind of cough. You can't. They'll ban us on YouTube. We can't afford to do that. Sorry. It's on what's it on? It's on the YouTube channel actually. It must be on Concaf YouTube. I know it's on Fox. I don't know if Fox have exclusive rights, but it has to be on Concaf YouTube actually. I'll get an Amazon stick. A lot of people have those. Issa said, I think Jamon Laws and Che Gardner should be given more time in the next game. Yeah, people have been calling for that actually. I was saying Lyles has some special. Yeah, I think those 2 names have come forward quite a bit, so we'll see what happens. By the way, what happened to Plunkett? Because they say Plunkett was in the squad, but I don't see him. The kid that plays at Man U Academy. Did he go back? Did he not come? I don't know what happened. His name was on a sheet that I got, but I don't see what happened. So number 10 was terrible. But number 10 is the captain, isn't he? Number 10 is the captain, so... And some people were talking very highly of him. I still haven't seen it when I see him play. Iko Rick said the only field that worth them sense at Jamaica is Mount Pleasant. He said if we had allowed Grimmy to work on a football, well, we'd be good defensively. I know about offensively. Oh, okay. Because I know I saw his name on the list. Because did he play against Nigeria? Thought he was in that group of people. Okay. Yeah, I was looking for him. What happened to the kid from Holland who was also at the Unity Cup? And he played well as a right back. He played quite well in all the games that he played in. His club didn't release him. I found that interesting. He wasn't there either. He's a good player. Give Burgess a chance to play, but he's a good player. Marvin said Bobby's son looked good. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's the first game. Kids are gonna have jitters because they're kids. They're still under 20, but at their age, because here's what I'm looking for people. When I'm watching those games, I'm thinking, okay, how many of these kids I see transition to the senior team at some point? Because when you're in the under 20, that's the next step, right? That's the next step for these kids. Because a lot of times, like, if you play for the big countries, you ain't playing under 20 if you're good enough to make the national team. That ain't happening. Most times, if you look at England under 21 team, for example, most of those kids ain't transition to the national team. They're just not. The Palmers of the world, when Raheem was playing, all of them, Saka, they're not playing under 21. Issa says, Alan kids, they didn't release him and Seymour as well. Okay. Now that makes sense. I was trying to figure that out as to why he wasn't there, because he was good, actually. Very solid. I can understand Seymour not being released. I'm a little bit surprised that it's the summer that he didn't get released. That's ridiculous. It's not like it's in season. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Because we want to see more of him to see if he can transition to the senior team at some point. Because we have a right back problem, even though I think cover has looked good, but against inferior competition. We want to see him against better competition. But we're going to be thinking about which kid in the next year or two can transition to the senior team. Says Young was the best Jamaican player in my opinion. Yeah, he was decent. I thought Nolan was decent also, actually. What we need to do when the ball goes up to Nolan is he needs to be, because I think Nolan plays unselfish. We need to get people running off him so he's trying his pass sometimes a little bit short, but he's trying to link up, which is very important, actually. So we need to get people, when you're playing with your back to goal or center forward, you want that wall pass to be made or be able to have options, and not sure you got enough options. Okay. AQ said the biggest issue with the 10 is his physique. Why does he look chubby? That is crazy. He sees the pass and can pick the look. Except vision way to pass for the goal. Inexcusable weight. Yeah. I think he made 2 of those passes. Who made the pass to Scott that he bushed? He's got to score that. He's got to have at least give him a chance to score that goal, himself a chance to score that goal. He didn't. That was a really bad miss. That would have put Jamaica up 2-0 and put Honduras under more pressure. Missing that chance, even though we weren't playing well, really created a problem for the team. And there were a number of times where the forwards would have gotten behind the defense if the passing was a little bit better. But we have to play better to beat Canada, or to even beat Panama, even though Canada did beat Panama 3-0. Issa said, Young was okay. He needs to sense danger. The goal we conceded, he stood there. He should have rushed the player. The goal we conceded, who was the player that got beaten and put on his butt? He has to take a yellow card there. He has to stop the play. He can't get bamboozled the way he was. That was the problem on that goal. So then everything got discombobulated after he got beaten. They walked the ball into the goal. And we had a lot of defenders around here too. A lot of defenders. It was a well orchestrated goal, but we had a lot of defenders. That shouldn't have happened. Nola made a pass. Okay. That shouldn't have happened, actually. That shouldn't have happened. You can't let the man beat you there, because then create problem on your team. And also, if he beats you, Burgess was putting this down for half-side. Go watch the tape again. He's the one who kept the player onside. There were two, by the way, there were two Hondurans there, There were 2 players to score that goal. They had choice. The person scored with his left foot. But if Burgess was in line with his defense, it would have been offside. Ian said the Jamaican squad is depleted through injury and club. Best up, Ian. How you doing? Hope they qualify. I hope they qualify too. Yeah, I hope they qualify too. Yeah, he should have. He was too deep, and then he put his hand up for offside. I'm thinking you kept him onside. Why you put your hand up for offside? That makes no sense. But look, they won. That's the most important thing, because no matter how good Honduras may feel about how they played, they lost the game. Good night.
You're connected.
Yeah, you're connected.
Okay, good. What's going on, man? Country? Is Issa?
Hey, Issa, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, just on the goal we consider. I was saying that the kid Young, he played okay, You know, he has a big presence. He seems very calm when he gets the ball. So those attributes are okay. But one thing I saw was that he don't really sense danger. I don't know the feed you were watching, but I was watching from the CONCACAF feed. And a lot of times I hear the coaches on the sideline shouting after him, telling him to keep tracking the player, run in the box with the player, run in the box. So some of those things he needs to just learn as he grows.
Right.
And that goal, the first player that got beaten was the centre back Brown. I don't know what he was doing up there, but he was the first player that got beaten. And then the second player to get beaten was Owen Jump. Immediately after that, you was the only six in the team at that particular time. You should rush the player and have him make a different decision. You know what I'm saying, Cranky?
Right.
Because that player was in motion. While you stood there, you just give him an easy opportunity to pick his pass.
Yeah.
Probably he would have to try to beat you and then do something else. But you just standing there, you allowed him to just look and just pick the pass. So that was my thing on the goal that we conceded.
I think what people don't realize second half is that we allowed them to get too deep before we attacked them. So they were bringing the ball down the field, closer and closer to 18, and we kept dropping deep. We were like England the other day. We're dropping deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And part of it is fatigue. When you get fatigued, you want to congregate and you want to go back and you want to consolidate. Versus, you know what? I'm going to put pressure on the ball. They weren't putting enough pressure on the ball until they got to like 10 yards outside the 18. Then we're putting pressure on the ball. And that became a problem. It was we were getting deeper and deeper and deeper in our own half, and that was becoming more. But I guess we're getting more tired actually, because I assume that we went there and played not too long after got there, right? So I'm sure that the altitude got to it at some point.
They only had one training session because I think they arrived probably late Friday night into Saturday morning.
Right.
They had probably one training session on the Saturday and then played the match on the Sunday. But Cranky, the bench to me is good. I think, playing at altitude in Mexico, I think the coach should be using his bench, way better. Because to me, the bench is very strong. He had some players on the bench who we could say, could be starters. And I think the time when he took off Nolan and Bell at the same time, I kind of was confused because to me, those are two of your players who are giving you the best output.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is settled on where he wants to play who, because in that first half, there was a spell when Bell went onto the left side, he put Nolan back up top, and Scott dropped right behind Bell, behind Nolan. That was a pretty good spell, Bell coming off the left-hand side. That moment in the game looked good for us. And I don't know.
Nolan was dropping deep sometimes also. Nolan was dropping deep sometimes, yeah. And trying to, I guess when you're playing, like, when you have a good player like Nolan, you want to touch the ball, right?
Right.
And he wasn't getting enough service, so he came back to be involved in the play.
And I think the issue I see right now with the number 10, the captain, Howell, that's his name?
The number 10 is Howell.
Jabari Howell.
Yeah.
I see he's dropping very deep, right? But when he drops deep, he's trying to carry the ball from his third of the field to through the mid third and then into the final third. If you're dropping that deep, Jabari, your first option is to move the ball from point A to point B as quickly as possible. Not you carrying the ball. So a lot of times he holds on to the ball very long, loses it. So I think he would be, better served playing up a little bit higher, because when the team started, they started with only Young as the sixth and probably the Howell dropping deep to help him out. So a lot of the times he was, getting the ball in his own territory and trying to carry it out. Probably the next game, I don't know how the coach might set up, but he needs to probably, be put a little bit higher to use the skills that he has in the opponent's half rather than trying to take the ball from his half and carry it. He probably needs to learn that, moving the ball, from point A to point B, passing it should be much quicker than him trying to carry the ball. And that was one of the issues I saw with him last night.
Yeah, I think the team struggle to play through the lines. I think the defenders seem pretty comfortable on the ball, right? But then they have no pressure. Yep. They had no pressure. right? It's not like they were getting pressed, and we can see how comfortable they are. Then they give the ball to Young wide, and they give the ball to Burgess wide, and then the midfield is not there. Or even if they get there, they're under pressure. They're not comfortable dropping a shoulder and turning, or getting a nice little 1-2 and play the ball behind the first line to get the ball. They're not comfortable doing that. So what you then find yourself doing is you have to go long because you don't have any option.
No option.
So you're going over the top all the time, and then it just turns over. And when you go over the top, Honduras just take it down and start walking up the field.
Yeah, because it's not like we have any, powerful number 9s, and we're not running into space, or even if the ball goes into space, it's not played good. So, I mean, Cranky, as I said, this is the same old. Some of the times it pains me to, we probably said this on 100 shows already, but Cranky, the youth are talented. And I know you can see that they have talent, but I think we can be playing a better brand of football that's, more progressive and more sustainable than we are seeing. And I think the coaching that they're getting is a disadvantage to the young men, because to me, they are talented. And we can see that they have the talent. It's just down to the instructions that they are being given at this point in time. Some of the times why we see the brand of football. And as you rightly said, they weren't being pressured enough to be doing some of the things that they are doing, so.
Yeah, sometimes they passed the ball out of bounds and they had no pressure at all. And you're just like, that's not okay, because that's a turnover. You can't afford to just give the ball away without pressure. If you have pressure, then your decision is much more hurried. But if you don't have any pressure, you shouldn't be giving the ball away.
Yeah, and I just didn't like the brand of football, but I mean, what can we do? This is what the coaches ask them to do. So they just probably have to follow suit. But I think the youth, they are talented. And I'm just hoping that the coach can, come up with something that will allow their best attributes to be seen on the field, when they're playing.
I'm going to predict that Nolan can play for Jamaica in 3 years' time. I'm predicting that. I think he has a lot of ability.
Nolan is a good kid. I mean, I don't know what it is, why he keeps on scoring. I don't know if he has the eye for goal, but he seems to be in the right place at the right time.
He can play. He can just pull out up. He can play. It's not even about his goal scoring. He can play. He tried to link up as a center forward. He's not just trying to score goals. He's trying to play. I haven't really seen him beat people per se. And look, he's 16 playing under 20, even though he's a big 16. He's not a small 16. But if you're playing 3 years above, where you're supposed to be, it's a big deal, right? You may still be mature as a person, but you're big in terms of body. So, and his game is still going to be refined. He's a good kid. He's a good player. But Honduras was a better team. Now, people always say, how can the better teams lose? Well, that was a perfect example last night. If you want to see a better team lose, that's a perfect example last night, because they played good in a lot of different. As the game progressed, they were playing better because they were getting more desperate, and we become, like most teams do, more defensive. And at some point, you're saying, okay, when are they going to score? Because it's just a matter of time. And again, when they're going to score again, they should have scored the second goal. The ball across that was crossed, that was missed by 2 players. That should have been a goal also.
We were lucky.
Yeah?
I know I took up much of your time, Cranky. So
yeah, man.
I'll keep listening.
Appreciate the call, Lisa. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's my hope is that the kids get the requisite coaching, get the requisite instruction, are guided in a certain manner that allows them to maximize their potential, actually. Because as Issa said, some of them do have talent, right? In fact, they all have talent. They're different levels to it. I think players that impress me, Nolan, the goalkeeper, is a little bit short to me, but he's a good goalkeeper. And he's comfortable with the ball. He's not totally comfortable with his feet, but he plays comfortable with his feet, if that makes any sense. He's not afraid to get the ball and take the ball and use the ball. And the defenders are the same way. But I think there has to be a way in which we are coaching our midfielders to dominate in the midfield, not to play afraid, to know when to pass, when to move the ball, not even dribble, because to me, you shouldn't dribble a ton in the midfield unless you're further up the field, because if you lose it, you put pressure on your defense. When to drop a shoulder, when to look off a pass, when to survey the field and realize the ball comes to me on the left or on the right, what did I do with it? That thought process, that speed of thought, that quality of thought, it needs to improve. Yeah, no, I think Leighton's gonna be a good player, actually. A little bit skinny and lanky, but I think he's gonna be a good player. Yeah, but a lot of those kids, I know those kids don't play football in Jamaica, you know. People don't realize that. A lot of MLS, Houston, Toronto, number of those kids play outside Jamaica. So it's not like, you know, we have a few from like Arnett Gardens, Mount Pleasant, XYZ, Chapter Maroon, but a number of those kids are be playing some places. We can't just blame the coaches in Jamaica for some of this, because some of those kids are playing in other places, right? So we have to ask ourselves why, you know, Inter Miami, Miami FC, they're different. In fact, I think the trend I'm seeing now, which I expected to happen, and about now, is this: is that in the next 10 years, a lot of players who play for Jamaica are going to reside in the United States or Canada. Remember, I said that. In the next 10 years, and maybe not this cycle around, but a lot of kids, because there's been so much migration to North America by Jamaicans who want to produce offspring who want to play for Jamaica. And England is now going to its, third generation. A lot of those kids are going to be from the US playing for Jamaica versus the UK, actually. And they'll more want to play for Jamaica too, because it's not like the kids in the UK who some of them have never been to Jamaica. Most of those kids in the US have been back to Jamaica. It's part of the environment. It's almost like next door. It's 3 hours, 4 hours away by plane. So they spend a lot of time in Jamaica. They're much more acclimated. And they feel much more part of that culture, to be honest. That may sound strange for some people, but that's a fact. So I would expect that as these kids improve in their game, become part of more of the system, get better coaching, have certain pedigree, some will play for Canada and the US, but a number of them will play for Jamaica. And we're seeing that at the youth level, and they're matriculated to the senior team. And let's hope they're not deterred by poor management. But anyway, I've exhausted my welcome. DC says, speaking of coaches, did you know that Vin Blaine has a Substack? I may have subscribed. No, I didn't know that, actually. I think somebody mentioned about probably was using the JFF stuff without their acknowledgement or something. I forgot. I have to look. Yeah, Gary, I think that's going to happen, actually. It's inevitable, actually, just because the migration pattern has changed materially, right? One time it was all UK after World War II. Now it's all US or Canada. So you'd expect, and football is becoming much more popular in this part of the world, you're going to see more and more of that, actually. The under 17 was that way. The under 20 is that way. And you'd hope that eventually some of these kids matriculate to the senior team. And think about it. 5 or 6 players from Canada, or 4 or 5 players from Canada of Jamaican heritage. Couple in the US may not be born in Jamaica, but have US Jamaica affiliation. Eventually, some of those kids are going to be like the Mexicans do, which is they play for Jamaica versus playing for the US. All right, people, I'm going to sign off. First thing I want to say, I appreciate each and every one of you. Bless up, man of God. Man of God, I haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? Hope things are well. Thanks for joining me tonight. And let me know if you like the format, talking about transfers and do some Jamaica some under 20 football. I don't really do watch along for under 20, so I don't know if I'm going to do any of the games. I know we play Panama next. I may do it, but it's hard watching the under 20 because I don't have any sense of surety. I would be frustrated with kids. I would like to be frustrated with adults, so we'll see if I do any watch along. But it's an easy watch, or a good watch, actually. I like the spirit of the kids. I like the camaraderie. I like the spirit. I like how hard they play. I like they give you their all. As we're saying, the kids do have technical ability, but it's not cohesive. And it needs to be cohesive for them to do really well. And I think in today's environment, people don't understand that running for 90 plus minutes is hard, but running for 90 plus minutes without the ball is much harder. So hit the like button before you leave. Subscribe to the channel, support the channel, share the channel, and have a wonderful evening. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you. Have a good night and peace out. And go watch the game between Honduras and Mexico. It's interesting. It's 0-0 in the 38th minute. Mexico look like a better team, but the team they're playing hard. Enjoy the game. Peace out.